With the danger that surrounds us all, you don't have to partake in it. You can stay in a place of safety and security regardless of what's going on. We're going to talk about that. Welcome back to my teaching channel. We've been talking about refuse to participate. This series has gone along a lot longer than I expected it to, but I just have to follow the Lord. Today we're going to talk about something that is so important because we are seeing the absolute corruption and destruction of the world around us. But you can remain safe through all of it. You don't have to be part of it. You don't have to participate. So let's get started with this. I mentioned in one of my shorts this week that the book of Exodus is actually, or today's world is actually a mirror of what happened in the book of Exodus. If you're not familiar with the book of Exodus, I encourage you to go back and read it, because the things that happened there, the type of leadership they had in Egypt, the type of situations the Hebrew slaves went through, the type of plagues that came on the earth, came on only on Egypt because of what they had done to the Hebrew children. And God protected them through the whole thing, through everything. So let's look at Exodus 8 first. There were a number of plagues. I'm not going to read Exodus in its entirety today because it's going to take way too long. But in the book of Exodus, in chapter 8, there was going to be another plague, and in that plague there was flies that came upon the earth, and it talks about being a grievous swarm. If you read the book of Exodus in chapter 8, it describes it in the King James anyway, as a grievous swarm of flies. They had flies everywhere. Imagine having a swarm. A swarm is when you can't even see the sky because there's so many of them. And they had them in places I don't even want to discuss on this channel because it's intimate. But it says in verse 22, this is the Lord speaking, "And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that the swarms of flies shall be there, that no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end that they may know that I am the Lord in the midst of all the earth." Now, Egypt and Goshen were like right next door to each other. It'd be the same thing as if you were standing on a street corner and all you had to do was cross the street and you crossed the boundary between two cities. Well, that's how Egypt and Goshen were. They were right next door to each other. In the natural, there was no way that Egypt should be swarmed with so many flies that they were everywhere and in thick swarms of flies. And yet in Goshen, there wasn't a fly to be found. God took care of them, because in the book of Exodus, giving you a real quick summary, Pharaoh was told by God, God sent Moses to tell Pharaoh, "Let my people go, that they may worship me." And Pharaoh said, no. They were slaves, and Egypt was making money from what they were doing for free. And when every time Pharaoh was confronted with Moses said the same thing. The Lord has said, "Let my people go," and he always said, "Nope." So he said, "Fine. If you don't do this, there's going to be a plague," and the plagues came. So we talked about the flies. In Exodus 9, there was another plague. And this plague was hail, and the hail was so intense that it ruined everything out there. The crops, it hit people, it hit animals, it killed everything. It just went through. And it says, I'm going to read verse 25 first. "And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every herb of the field and broke every tree of the field." That's how intense it was. Anyone who's lived in Texas or does live in Texas knows about intense hail, because it does happen there. In verse 26, "Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, was there no hail." Again, they were adjacent to each other. The land of Goshen was where the Hebrew slaves lived, and Egypt was where the leaders lived. And they were slaves for Egypt, and Egypt was the one who had all the plagues. But every single time, God spared Goshen because that's where the Hebrew children lived. Look at verse 23, at 10:23, Exodus 10:23. There was a plague of darkness, and the darkness was so dark that the darkness could be felt. That's what it says in the King James. It says, I'm going to back up to verse 21. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out your hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness that may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose from their place for 3 days. It was so bad that they wouldn't move for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. Can you imagine being in Goshen and looking over and seeing, you can't even see Egypt because it's so dark, but yet you can see, you have light in your house. There's light in your dwelling. God protected the Hebrew children because they were, for 430 years, they were enslaved in Egypt. And it was time for them to leave. And God said, told Moses, tell the Pharaoh that I want my children, let my children go so they may go and worship me. And Pharaoh said no. He kept hardening his heart. That is a mirror of what we've been seeing over the last few years in our modern world. Let's look at, let's look at Psalm 112. Let's go there first. Because in spite of what we're seeing, you have to be so grounded in your faith that no matter what you see with your eyes or hear with your ears, it doesn't change the way you believe. You have to believe God so much that it's almost like watching a famous magician who makes the Statue of Liberty disappear. David Copperfield was a magician a number of decades ago. And one of his illusions was to make the Statue of Liberty disappear. Well, everybody knows it's still there. He never actually made it leave. But the illusion was that it was gone. Well, you have to be and you're watching that I remember watching David Copperfield do that illusion. And I knew that it was an illusion, but in my brain, I'm saying, I know this isn't really gone. It's coming, it's not gone, it's going to show up again. But you have to get to the point where you don't believe what you see. You don't believe what you hear. And I'm giving you examples of how to stay separated from whatever you see ahead of you, because there's things coming. There are things coming, and I'm trying to help you with this. So look at Psalm 112. In verse, it starts in verse 1. It says, praise ye the Lord, blessed is the man that fears the Lord, that delights greatly in his commandments. His seed shall be mighty upon the earth, the generation of the upright shall be blessed. Wealth and riches shall be in his house, and his righteousness endures forever. In verse 6 it says, surely he shall not be moved forever. The righteous shall be in everlasting remembrance. He shall not be afraid of evil tidings. His heart is fixed, trusting in the Lord. His heart is established. He shall not be afraid until he see his desire upon his enemies. When you're staying in the Word and you're doing, if you've been following this channel for any length of time, you know that I constantly talk about speaking the Word of God over your situation, over your circumstances. When you do that, what you are doing is as you're speaking it, you're putting it out in the quantum realm, so the quantum realm is cooperating with whatever you said to bring that thing to pass. But also, and it's just as important, you are also convincing yourself that the Word of God is true. If you are convinced that the Word of God is true, nothing will move you. When those Hebrew children went through what they went through in Egypt, they could have easily been moved off of their faith. And they did struggle with their faith at times. They gave Moses a really hard time after they left Egypt because their faith started to waver. But the thing of it is you will stay in the Word and you will speak the Word only over yourself. You will find that you will not waver. You'll get to a point where you know that God is God and he will do what he says. And if he didn't say it, he shouldn't have put it in the book, because I'm going to believe what he said. And that's how you have to be. You have to make up your mind that you're not going to waver. And in Psalm 91, let's go there now. Psalm 91 is, everyone knows who knows the Word. that Psalm 91, it talks about protection. And it talks about protection, all different types of protection. Psalm 91, 1,000 will fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but will not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you see the reward of the wicked. Psalm 91, it starts with, he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge, he is my fortress, my God, in him will I trust. If you only know have those two verses that you speak, and you stay in the love walk, you are dwelling in the secret place. And if you make the Lord your refuge, then everything in Psalm 91 applies to you. You have to make him your refuge and your fortress. And you do that with your words. We need safety in this time, but God is a God who will protect his own. And he will do exactly what he says he will do. Trust him to do it and act like it's true, because it is. And watch the manifestation of his glory in your life. We're going to leave it here for now. Until next time, I should remind you that as a reminder, I do have a podcast called Defeat the Darkness. It's on Spotify and iTunes. You can go to my website. You'll see my website at the bottom of the screen. And you can go to get a direct link to my podcast. You can also find a link to subscribe. If you're trying to tell somebody how to subscribe to my channel, you can just take them there to vivianlmiller.com. But as a reminder, please share the podcast if you like it. Please share the videos if you like them. Please like the videos. If you have a question, leave it in the comments. I will get back to you as quickly as I can. But until next time, walk by faith, walk in courage, walk in boldness, and defeat the darkness. I'll talk to you soon.